Right now, studies show, for example, my colleague at Altimeter Group, Jeremiah Aying, ran a study that showed that I think a little over 50% of social media is run out of the marketing department. I think another 20-ish% was run out of public relations. Between those two marketing disciplines, that accounts for the majority of social media ownership. But the question that I ask most businesses, well, who owns the customer relationship? It's a rhetorical question, of course, but the answer really is everybody affected by customer behavior. So that means that social media living in any one department is never going to serve the needs of the greater customer base, because there is no one audience for one story. Everybody has different needs, is open to different things. So I believe that social media ownership should be distributed across the organization where those divisions are affected by outside behavior. But there has to be a central governance. So we see right now this hub and spoke format that's starting to emerge, where there's this neutral organization within the center that becomes responsible for social media strategy, governance, guidelines, measurement, and then education and training, so that they can essentially go out to the spokes and empower each one of the business units, each one of the business functions, so that they can be empowered to effectively engage the customer their way. Well, much like marketers need to think like the customer they're trying to reach, the C-suite is an audience as well, and to see things from their perspective is a really good start. The challenge is that the C-suite doesn't need to hear from a social media champion. They don't need to hear about how wonderful Twitter is or how fantastic Facebook is, because they're not using it most of the time. That's something that their kids or their nieces or nephews, or that might be just the general impression that they have. But the reality is this, and I've talked to countless executives. It's actually the foundation of my whole next book. And this is a quote from a real world executive, and that was, if you bring social media to me as a priority for resources, for budget, it's never going to win. But if you can show that social media is an enabler of a business objective or a business priority, then it can earn my attention. But you have to do the homework that shows how social media, not because of Facebook and Twitter, but how social media is an enabler to that business priority or objective. That is a whole different game. This is why I joined the Altimeter Group, is because spending time at the C-suite level by demonstrating through research and through analysis that this is an opportunity for them, through cost analysis, for example, by showing opportunity cost, by showing competitive analysis of what consumers or customers are doing and how they're making decisions. Basically everything's packaged in a way that they're already interpreting in order to make solid business decisions. It's not about the tools, it's not about the community, it's about business objectives and priorities and how those align. That's a very different game, and I realized that the only way that I was going to help transform an organization and bring silos together would be because there was proof that there was an advantage and benefit of doing so. Otherwise, if you bring it as a social media champion and you hope for this groundswell, well, you hit that glass ceiling every single time. You'll never break through it. But if you can convince the executives that social media is an extension or an enabler of a multi-pronged strategy, then you get top-down support. And that's very different, because you're going to need not just budget or resources, you're going to need the culture of the organization and the support of the organization to bring together service, HR, legal, marketing. Everybody's going to have to work together behind the scenes. That's a great way to say it. I often say that before you can collaborate externally, you have to collaborate within, and it's quite literal. You can't have, for example, customer service responding to the same tweet 12,000 times in a month and not have customer service connected to product development or product research and development, for example, and say, that's a lot of the same problem, and it cost us this much time this last month to address that over and over and over again. There's got to be some sort of infrastructure that says we can collaborate together to solve and for something bigger. What is it that we're trying to solve for, and why? And when we look at the hub and spoke model, what I like to do in that hub is bring together a team of individuals that represent different yet affected business functions. So I call it, a new media task force, call it a social media center of excellence, whatever you want to call it. but have different individuals who can become stakeholders, right? And the only way for them to become stakeholders is because they feel vested in the process of transformation. So you have somebody from HR, you have somebody from legal, you have somebody from sales, you have somebody from, you name it, customer service. Whoever the vested stakeholders are, become a governing body for social media internally, so that then you are starting with collaboration. It's the only way to succeed in not just social media, but the future of business, right? Social media is just one part of platforms that are emerging that are going to force businesses to adapt and be more responsive than they have been today. So this command and control methodology that has governed businesses for so many years, where we focus on optimization, efficiencies, numbers, it's all fine and good, but at the same time we have to figure out that consumers, whether it's B2B or B2C, well, they have decisions that they need to make, and now they're empowered to surround themselves around the people who can help them make those decisions. And however it is that we can enter what I call this trust zone, become a valued member of that network, that requires a unified strategy, because the customer doesn't see divisions. They don't see business units. They see one brand, so we have to act as one brand.